Hello, everyone. This is Megan with St. Ange Company, and I'm excited to introduce this week's guest on Taking the Supply Chain Pulse. In today's episode, Fred sits down with Sarh Charai, the Executive Director of Supply Chain Operations for the Cleveland Clinic. With more than 20 years of supply chain experience, Sarh has seen and led this industry from both ends of the spectrum, giving her a uniquely well-rounded perspective on what truly makes supply chains resilient and effective. She'll be diving into the policies and procedures implemented at the Cleveland Clinic, how they've evolved, and what other organizations can learn from their approach to operational excellence. Let's dive in.
Sarh has a big job with one of the country's largest and most important IDNs. But what Sarh wants to talk about today are some procedures and some policies and some ways of doing business that they have implemented at the Cleveland Clinic that can be applied anywhere. So Sarh, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
My first question is, how did it feel to move to a warmer climate? Sarah is one of the few people who came from a place colder than Cleveland to Cleveland.
Yeah, my husband jokes when he says when I said I wanted to move south, I was thinking a little further than Ohio, but I have grown to really, really love Cleveland.
Well, we're glad to have you. Don't tell anybody about how great Cleveland is because we really don't want anyone to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Let them make fun. That's all I say. Let them make fun. They don't live here. They don't know. So tell us about your role at the clinic. Oh, first off, tell us a little bit about your history because I'd like people to know where you gained experience and where you came to this role from.
Yeah, so I have been in supply chain for over 20 years. I started my supply chain journey at Allina Health in Minneapolis, where I was there for 20 years. I started actually on the sourcing side of the house, and then I moved into operations. So I actually have been able to experience supply chain on both ends of the spectrum. And when I left Allina, I was leading supply chain operations at Allina Health, and then moved over to Cleveland Clinic about 2 years ago. And today I lead supply chain operations for Cleveland Clinic. So I lead all of our caregivers that are out at the hospitals and at the site. So that's everybody that's doing everything from doing the receiving at the docks, ordering and putting away the supplies at all of our sites. I also have a team that we call the Center of Excellence. So they're doing things like implementing our inventory management system. They're doing things like inventory optimization, setting our PARs, moving product so it doesn't expire from site to site, and working on some of our special projects that we do.
And what is the scope? Is the scope across the entire Cleveland Clinic Foundation operation, which means Arizona and Florida as well as Northeast Ohio?
Yeah, it is. It's enterprise-wide. A lot of people don't realize that Cleveland Clinic is bigger than just Cleveland, And so we do have sites that I oversee and caregivers in our Florida market, obviously in Northeast Ohio. We have a dotted line to our facility in London, and then we do consulting for our facilities over in Abu Dhabi and in Nevada and Toronto as well.
Wow. One of the interesting things that I learned from, and we'll talk probably about this conference that I think took place at the end of February, was that every day the Cleveland Clinic at every level of the organization has a huddle where basically everyone communicates what's going on so that everybody knows everything they need to know every day. Could you talk a little bit about that, what that is and how that works?
Yeah, we call that our safety huddle. And it's a really great process that we use to get things done and addressed in a really quick, efficient manner. It's an escalation process. So It starts at the front line. It's a way to identify and escalate safety issues and a way to communicate up and down. And so it starts early in the morning. Frontline caregivers meet and escalate to their managers, and it goes all the way up to our top executives. And things get done really, really quick and addressed really quick, fast. And it's a wonderful method to hear what's going on all over the organization. And like I said, address any issues or concerns at all of our sites immediately.
Yeah, and just for our listeners' understanding, how many sites is that?
Oh, well, we have like 26 hospitals, I think, throughout the organization, and we have hundreds of other facilities, and we're all connected then every morning to what's going on throughout all of them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Isn't
So, and yet, as connected as you are, each area has individual sort of differences that have to be managed. So you were sitting there working with Tom Lubotsky up in Alina, one of my good friends, and a nice place. You've been for 20 some years. You couldn't get better. You knew everything. How did you get wooed to the clinic, and what were you given as your directive and your expectations when you came there?
Yeah, I always say that I hit the jackpot when it came to leadership. I was lucky enough to have wonderful leaders throughout my whole career, including Tom, as you mentioned, and then to be lucky enough to land here at Cleveland Clinic and work for someone like Steve Downey. It's amazing, and it was a perfect time in my life personally to make the move to Cleveland Clinic. When my youngest son was going off to college, and so personally we were able to move and relocate, and it was a great fit for me from a career perspective. Everything that I wanted to do from a strategic perspective, it was a great match. All of the initiatives that Steve had teed up here at Cleveland Clinic, again, just a really great match with everything that they had going on from a supply chain operations perspective. So excellent opportunity. Feel really lucky. Feel really lucky to be here.
Did you have any performance targets, or did Steve have any framework in mind of what he wanted to accomplish by putting you in the role when you came here? And if so, what were they?
Yeah, I think some of the things that some of the things that I had done at Alina and had been working on, again, was good for what Steve had envisioned here. So, for instance, I had aligned case cart picking under materials at Alina, and that's one of the things that we're doing here at Cleveland Clinic in preparation for, we have a big initiative around centralization and standardization through our peri-op strategy that we're working on. So that was a big perfect alignment, and I had some experience in that. So good, really good fit. We're assessing some off-site strategies. Again, I had some experience in that at Alina as well. So nice.
Yeah, you used a word there that I think is an important word. I try to tell people that everybody it's in supply chain anywhere should develop a starting point, should do an assessment of their current operations to see where they are. That assessment, comparing them to the key performance indicators that they develop as important to monitoring their operation. See where you are to get started. And I know that many of the smaller places say, we can't do that. We don't have time. We don't have the money. Or we have a staff that we don't need to do that because our staff knows what they're doing. Well, the Cleveland Clinic is one of the great IDNs in this country. And if I always point out that if the Cleveland Clinic can decide that it needs to do an assessment of its supply chain operations, then perhaps you should too. Tell us about Steve's about the overall system-wide assessment that you have undergone.
Oh yeah, I think but like you said, I think it's always good to take a pause and take a look inward and see where you are and compare yourself not only against others in your industry, but also how others outside of your industry are doing it, right? I mean, we are also taking a look at how other supply chains outside of healthcare, what they're doing and what automation, as an example, they're using and some of their best practices. So yeah, just taking lessons learned and looking at how you can do better, what areas of opportunity there are. It's good to validate things you're doing well and areas that you can improve on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Going from that, well, one of the things that I know that you guys have been doing, and this gets to what I wanted to talk about, and what I think you're bringing up, is the idea of strategic partnerships with suppliers. And as I have said, probably now in about 3 or 4 of these podcasts, I attended a 2-day conference that the clinic put on in late February that was different than anything I'd ever attended before. And it was 200 would-be or current suppliers to the Cleveland Clinic were present, and the 2-day conference sort of opened up the Cleveland Clinic's role and its goals and its mission to the suppliers, and told suppliers what they expected as far as the way to successfully do business with the clinic. Could you talk about the concept of strategic partnerships and what that means to you?
Yeah, I always get excited when we start talking about strategic suppliers and how can we work together in taking a partnership to the next level. And the reason why is because when it really comes down to it, and when you get really serious about being creative and coming up with different creative and innovative solutions, so often it starts touching on the operations, right? And that's my world. And so that's what really gets exciting. And oftentimes the solutions, they're really fun to work on these projects. And again, they start getting very into the operations part of the equation. So that's exciting because they start impacting things that it's about, like, how can we become more efficient in what we do? How can, maybe it's about how can we help staff, whether it's how they do their day-to-day work, whether it's helping them from a career advancement perspective. A lot of things that we're working on today with suppliers touch our world, my team, and that's exciting to me.
Before we dive back in, you may be asking yourself, is my supply chain future ready? At Sarh Company, we don't just optimize logistics, we engineer smarter, leaner, and more resilient systems from end to end. From manufacturing to retail to healthcare, our experts bring decades of experience and cutting-edge strategies to transform your operations. Visit and discover how we're shaping the future of supply chain one solution at a time.
Yeah, you talked about some things like, you talked about the fact that you, like everyone else, has staffing issues.
Yeah.
And part of the approach to staffing challenges, shall we say, has been some creative things like co-op programs with suppliers. Talk about that.
Yeah, we had worked this past summer. We had done a program with one of our supplier partners, Cook, and I think it was an amazing program. And it was with a graduate student. And, I noticed that a lot of these co-ops and these partnerships with our suppliers tend to be with college level or graduate level talent. And, a lot of my team is they're coming out of high school, and they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have college degrees. And so I would love to work with supplier partners and look at how can we take that concept and work together and bring it down into like the warehouse level and into some of my team. And I would love to explore that a little further, because the concept works so well in some of these higher skill set, higher level. I'd love to expand on that. And so when we talk about what added value can these suppliers bring, that's the type of creative and innovative solutions that we're looking for when we say working together to bring added value. I have to think that a lot of these suppliers are dealing with the same type of issues that I'm dealing with. They have warehouses. They're competing with the Amazons and the Targets and the Walmarts of the world to attract and retain talent for their warehouses as well. I would love to see us all, work together to keep this talent in the healthcare supply chain industry. And let's work together to do that, right? Because they too want to have career advancement opportunities. And so if we could come up with programs where, you do a bit of your co-op at some supplier's warehouse, and then you come to a provider and work at their warehouse or at their hospital, I think that would be a really fun job opportunity for that level of caregiver.
Yeah, you're getting into something. A couple days ago, LinkedIn has started to ask me questions, and I realized that my response becomes a post. But one of the questions was, how, if I were going to be considering going into healthcare in the next 5 years or so, what should I be on the lookout for? And one of my answer always about healthcare is a we business versus a me business. Mm-hmm. And that conference that you had opened with the most powerful video, I think the Cleveland Clinic Empathy is the name of the video. Mm-hmm. For folks who want to see it. How do you what kind of strategies do you have to A, recruit people, and then B, give them the feeling that they want to commit to doing this for a lifetime?
Right. It does take a special type of person. We are kind of looking for a special type of person to come work for us, because we're not going to be the highest paid. We're not going to be able to pay the highest amount out there. And so we do have to make sure that you're here for the right reasons. And I kind of laugh because, there's oftentimes we ask the question, why do you want to work in healthcare? And so often I get the answer, this might sound corny. And then they go into, I really want to make a difference. And it really isn't corny. And that is exactly the type of answer that we're looking for. Is we do want those people that really do want to make a difference, because it is hard work. And again, I'm not going to be able to pay you the top salaries out there. So we do look for people that want to make a difference. And that video perfectly states it, I think. Yeah, it's a great video for those who haven't seen it. I think it's on YouTube and you can look it up.
It is. And I show people because that is the big difference. One of the things that we, Amy Watson and myself, from St. Ange, last spring, we went down to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, mm-hmm. which is where Dr. Randy Bradley was teaching. Now he's at Belmont. And we addressed both an undergraduate class and a graduate class of MBA students. And at the end of it, we had about 4 or 5 people came up, and this one woman, young woman, came up and said, "I've always wanted to do something that is important." And this discussion of what it means to be in healthcare supply chain. Amy, working for us as a senior person now, also spent several years as a healthcare supply chain professional at Penn State Health and some other places. So, and I've been doing this for 60 years now. And so they got a picture, and really there are people out there that are hungry to do this.
Right.
And you probably, I know I was supply chain leader at several of places that are now part of the Cleveland Clinic. I ran a supply chain at Timken Mercy Medical Center in Canton back in the 80s. I ran the Meridia Health System supply chain, which is Hillcrest and a bunch of the other places that are now part of the clinic. They had devoted employees that have been there forever. But when you go into these places, and this gets back to the assessment, you're finding as you acquire a new hospital, you're acquiring various degrees of disrepair and infrastructure needing to be fixed and everything. How do you go about approaching that and staying ahead of the game? Like the one function that I think is easiest you could walk into any hospital in this country anywhere, and their central sterile supply probably has about 10 things that need to be fixed at least. And sterile supply is a place that nothing ever gets done until something breaks.
Oh.
And as you guys build your practice and you acquire these older hospitals, you have to do an assessment and decide how to approach problems in there. Do you have a methodology for going about assessing those places? Or
Well, I think one of the things that I've noticed since I've been here, and I've only been here 2 years, but one of the things that I've noticed about the most recent acquisitions that Cleveland Clinic has done is that what they do is that they've gone in, and at least from a supply chain perspective, they've gone in and they've made sure that they move them as quickly as possible to the systems, the Cleveland Clinic systems and the platforms that they're on. So as an example, they move them as quickly as possible to the Cleveland Clinic inventory management system. So when you look across all of our hospitals and facilities, we're all on the same inventory management system, all of them. And that standardization is very important for all of the initiatives that we do from a supply chain perspective for that consistency and that standardization from a system perspective. I find that's a really great strategy, I think, right? Get them on the Cleveland Clinic systems, get them on the Cleveland Clinic platforms, on the standard equipment, get them using the standard supplies. That standardization is important.
Yeah. Do you find that it's a relatively easy transition, or do you meet with some pushback from time to time?
I think it depends on what I think it depends on what you're talking about from a systems perspective. Probably a bit easier, just because I don't think that they have much of a choice, right? I mean, it is that is the way, right? Like anything, when you talk about moving them to more of a supply, right? That there's a bit of more change management that has to happen there. But I think there's a lot of expectation setting up front. And I think that is, I think because that happens, I think that makes that transition a bit easier.
That's good. So what are your immediate challenges, and what do you see your organization doing moving forward for the next couple of years?
I think everybody probably realizes this about Cleveland Clinic. It's so it moves so quickly from an innovation and technology perspective. I think it's exciting, but the challenges there, especially, obviously I'm operations, and I think my concern there, and something that I think about a lot, is that skill set gap that I am aware I'm going to have from a team perspective. And going back to that, going back to where we started with the strategic partnerships, and how can suppliers play a role in that? I think there's an opportunity for suppliers to help when it comes to addressing that skill set gap that we have, and how can we creatively work together when it comes to minimizing that gap. When you think about what keeps me up at night, right? That's one of the topics that keeps me up at night. With technology and with all of the AI and automation that's coming so quickly, how do I make sure that my team is ready for it, and how do I address the skill set gap that I believe that we're going to have?
Well, it sounds like you're on top of it, Sarah. So that you got that going for you. That's really good. And if you were to give advice to me, a new guy entering the field at a 300-bed community hospital as the director of supply chain, because at a 300-bed hospital I'm probably not going to be a VP, what would you tell me? What would you tell me to keep my eyes open for?
Don't be afraid to try new things, and learn and build a great team of leaders around you, and rely on strong partnerships. Like I say, build a really strong team. I think that's a key to success is the strong team that you that you build around you.
Yep, I think you're right. I think the only thing I would add to that is find a mentor or mentors that you can lean on. I mean, I know you had at least one excellent one that I know, and that's Tom Labotsky. Yes. And you work for one of the great supply chain leaders in the country now, and Steve Downey. And you're active in your group purchasing organization and professional groups too. The one thing that I always, back in the real old days when we used paper and telephone, long distance calls cost money. We had to read magazines, and we didn't get to go too many places. We didn't have the ability to connect and learn like we do today. That's one thing that's a real big opportunity for people to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
But we're glad to have you in Cleveland. We're happy that someone actually had to move south to come to Cleveland. And we're glad that you're happy here. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you around soon, Sarah. And thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. It's been great having you.
Brad.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and connect with us online so you'll never miss an episode and can catch up on all the ones you might have missed. Got a topic you're fired up about, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show? Fred would love to hear from you. Just reach out at fcrans@stonge.com. We'll see you next time.